Hey, Alexander. Hey, Nathan. Good morning to you, I guess.
No, 2 p.m.
It's 2 p.m. It's afternoon already. You still
Yes.
in Florida then?
Yes, till the end of January and then a cold week in London.
Looking forward to that. That'll be good. Hey, Alexander. Hi there.
Hey Gary. What's good?
You can hear you. That's good. Where are you calling in from today, Alexander?
Same place as last time, Lagos, Nigeria.
Ah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have I
it's
have a memory like a goldfish. I can remember things for about 5 or 7 seconds, and I forget everything. So
yeah,
my apologies.
you and me
Oh,
both.
well, welcome back. Anyway, it's good to see you back again. That's great. I'm joined by Ray as well. Hey, Ray.
Hi, apologies. I've had the super flu and I'm only really joining quickly to say Merry Christmas. I've got drinks to go to.
Excellent. Well, I should have arranged for us to all bring our own drinks with us today, and we could have all have had a celebration. No, never mind. Right. Well, I thought I'd hold this one anyway, with it being before Christmas, because the world of crypto land continues irrespective, and there'll be another meeting next Sunday as well when it's after Boxing Day. So do come back.
So I just wanted to know briefly what you thought you were going to cover.
It really depends on who shows up. It
Oh,
really does. And so we've got the great thing that Nathan, who's with us this week, if you want to know about tokenizing real world assets, in particular things like a cello or fine art, then Nathan is your man. Definitely. If you want to learn a little bit more about the business that's going on in Nigeria, then we've got Alexander who's with us as well. And then I just take a general interest in everything. So these sessions are completely different every week. So a few weeks ago, Nathan and I were the only ones on the call, and we had a really good chat about some of the projects he's involved in, some of the interests. And so that was great if you wanted to learn about tokenization, real world assets, and all sorts of things. And because we record these sessions as well, and I put them up on YouTube afterwards, I got some really great feedback from people saying we should have been on that call. It was really good. So
So,
so yeah. So,
Gary,
so
I've got something that I wanted to throw out there today, and so maybe you and the
yep.
others might want to say something about it. So this is about AI and using it. So I tell true stories to my grandchildren at bedtime. They like true stories. They're often embellished and not Trumpified, but certainly not always exactly the truth. But I noticed that my son, their uncle, gave them a children's book by Leonora Carrington. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with her. She was a surrealist artist, quite a famous artist. She wrote one collection of books illustrated by herself for her children, and they are really quite gruesome and weird. And the kids love it. They love it. So I tend to make my stories a little bit out there. So recently, I thought I would start sort of interweaving some of my blockchain work, which is always around stories. The collectibles we work with always have a good story. So the one that I've been focusing on recently is the rhinoceros. So it's a 500-year-old story, which is an incredible true story. And my dilemma, I guess, or at least my owning up, is that I put into the Claude AI project all the information, all my research, everything I've done, and then told Claude that I wanted to create some bedtime stories. And quite frankly, there's no way I could have written anything that good that quickly, or even probably that good. And the children are loving it. So they're getting reading practice. The 7-year-old is having to read big words, which she's loving. And so we talk about the big words. But the fact is, I could say I'm the author, but I'm not. So is that an issue that I'm sure lots of people are doing it already. I know that 80 or 90% of the content now on YouTube is in fact either AI enhanced or AI created. I'm being very honest about it, and I'm actually providing the genesis of something real stories. But without Claude, I'd be back on the first story. I've got about like 20 stories already written.
And it shows as well how, I mean, that kind of intersects with blockchain and crypto in several ways without people realizing it. And it's mainly maybe because I've been through the hoop of technology a few times. I start seeing the connectors, because sometimes people will say, well, what's that got to do with crypto or blockchain or whatever? And you say, well, a couple of areas. First of all, if you look at how AI works with large language models and tokens, as they are called, this whole thing about how Claude or ChatGPT or anything works, it's based around the concept of tokens, which are used in a couple of ways. One is that you use tokens to pay for the compute power that goes into these outputs that they produce. But also a token ultimately is the next effectively word or whatever, that's the most likely thing. And there is the potential to link that in with blockchain, where you could use a blockchain-based system to work out most effective way of running a AI compute calculation or of storing it and this kind of thing. So there's some real overlaps on there, some of which I think maybe I'm probably heading down the wrong tracks on these things, but some of them may well happen, whereby you can actually use crypto as a form of payment for the services that you're using on the AI platforms. It's certainly a route. I'm seeing some of that, and you'll hear a thing called DePIN, which is decentralized physical infrastructure networks. So it's the whole idea of having crypto to pay for things like file server space and disk space and compute. I can see the potential of that linking in with AI models as well. And I know I've seen a couple of cases where people are looking at, if you run a query on, as you say, as Nathan was saying, like on Claude or something, the compute cost in terms of tokens and the energy used. And so people who are into environmental sustainability goals and that get really interested in this. It can be a good way of tracking what the compute cost is of a query, and then storing it so that you've then got evidence of how environmentally friendly some of your queries are, which it seems a bit weird. I'm doing some stuff around ESG at the moment and looking at what the emissions of a company are. And they're fine with things like, oh, well, we've got a few diesel company cars and they burn this much diesel and this kind of thing. And they're okay with, well, our staff take flights and we know roughly how much emissions that generate in that. But it's the ability to then capture that on a blockchain, so you can actually provide an evidence trail. It's quite interesting. So
yeah, well, I'm obviously coming at this from my background, which is quasi-artistic or primarily artistic, and I'm a little uneasy about IP because all my life my own IP has been mine. Whether I share it or charge for it, I've never charged for IP per se, other than when I play the cello, people pay or have paid me to play. And so if they record it, they record it. But if they buy a recording, they pay royalties and so forth. So there's a system in place. Now I intend to publish, probably on the blockchain, these stories as part of a bigger project, which involves a real world asset collectible. But the stories are kind of an add-on, but they're a way of hopefully getting more people to engage with the project by making it attractive for the kids via a bedtime story. There's no way the kid's going to get interested in Albrecht Dürer's rhinoceros, but they certainly like the story of the rhinoceros that actually went from India to Lisbon and via the Azores and got shipwrecked off the Genoa coast. You know, that's a true story, and I've turned it into something a bit more than that. But I've used very, very heavy input from Claude.
There's some emerging legislation around this, isn't there? About true origination and IP.
So, I mean, there's no question right at the moment. I mean, Anthropic can't come back at me and say it's our IP. It's not, that I'm paying them $20 a month. I'm getting very good value because I actually believe that what I've written is publishable, as is a lot of the research we do on our projects. Now, there it's a little different. We write the stuff and then we get Claude or ChatGPT to tidy it up. We don't get them to write it. We just get them to make it, a bit more formal or a bit less formal or a bit, cleaner, which they're very good at doing as well. But this is actually creative stuff. I've given it the bones of the story. I've given it a lot of information, and then I've told them the age of the kids and said, go for it.
Yeah.
So what does anybody else think? Am I doing something bad here, Stuart? Ray? Alexander?
Uh, I, I do have like a very very good input. So this brings to question. You did mention you are in the creative space, and I don't know if you know Brandon Sanderson, the very popular author of the Stormlight Archives. Don't know if anybody is familiar with him, but he did make a video. I think that was about 3 months ago. He did make a video about IP issues, especially with AI. So the main example he gave was, so what he does is for most of his books, he does commission artists for the artworks of his books. And now, if he does commission an artwork, if he does give someone, if he pays someone, right? He pays someone money that, oh, okay, I need an artwork for my book that is coming out. Now, the question is, who owns the artwork? Okay. Yeah, who owns the artwork?
The
It's
artist.
exactly, exactly. Ultimately, it's not him. It's not Brandon himself, right? That owns the artwork. It
Well,
is the artist.
unless he buys the copyright, he can do that. But
Yeah.
Yes,
under
he can.
normal circumstances, he's licensing the work.
Exactly. Exactly. So that brings, so that was his perfect example for how AI, especially generative AI, where you have videos and images that you create with AI. So you do give the input, but ultimately the artwork itself is not yours. But then again, like you did mention, you are already making payments to Anthropic. We are already making payments to Gemini every month. So I do believe personally, I do believe that we have a measure of copyright. We do have a measure of ownership, but ultimately, it's still not ours. I'm just really trying to still wrap my head around the whole thing, right? But that's just my input.
Thank you.
I was going to offer as well the answer from a consultancy perspective to pretty much any question is always it depends, and then you go on to what it depends on. And in this case, I think it depends a lot around jurisdiction and what it's around. So I'm an advocate of using AI when it's appropriate to, and here we are. Why don't we ask AI about IP? So I just pulled up using the shortcuts Google's AI, and it talks about jurisdictional differences. So in the US, they've got this human authorship requirement. So anything that is purely AI generated has no protection. But if you can prove that it's originated from a human, it's the human that's got jurisdiction. In the UK, it's got this thing about computer-generated works effectively having their own IP, which kind of is a bit more blurry. That it almost seems like it's the AI that has the IP. And then in Europe, it's similar to the US. So again, it comes back to that. I think if you can prove that there's some human interaction that has made it unique in some way, then that's generally considered sufficient for IP.
Yeah.
Or,
So
no,
yeah, no, I start from the position that it's absolutely my IP, and I would very, very, very disappointed if Anthropic thought that they could challenge that, and they're not going to. If we know that, and I would be very, very disappointed if anybody else did. I'm not actually going to enforce that IP. I'll simply make the works available through some kind of a portal. Either the parents will buy something and they'll get this access free, or we'll simply, use the free stuff to get the kids in and get their parents following.
Yeah.
So I'm not terribly worried about it. It's more of an ethical question that I'm asking myself, is to, am I sullying my own previous career? Now, as it happens, there's no AI yet that can play the cello particularly well. So I'm not out of a job anytime soon, and I'm too old to care. But it'll probably come. AI can already play the drums extremely well. Anything percussive, it can do. And if you give it the right inputs, you'll get out a pretty good result. Stringed instruments, and to some extent wind instruments, are much harder because they have duration. So a note can last quite a long time. It's very, very hard to synthesize every single permutation that I can do on my cello. So I'm not actually worried about that either. But writing words, that's different, isn't it? We all learn how to read and write, and AI is already doing it better if you give it decent input. If you give it shit, you'll get shit out. No question about that.
That's no different to any other technology that I've ever known. The old garbage in, garbage out type thing. Yeah. Again, it's a little bit like crypto and blockchain. I think the legislation is evolving a little bit, but is actually based on fairly solid principles. So, and it comes back to, it's usually the human who's the author. As long as you can prove that, you've got the IP. So we've just been joined by Taiwo and JT, by the way. So hello to you both, joining the call. Stuart's put his camera on now, so he's going to join as well. Hey there, Taiwo, sorry.
Yes, I'm fine. Nice joining you on the call today again.
Hey, Taiwo, we've got a nice mixture of people from all around the world. Where are you calling in from today? Taiwo, where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from Doncaster, close to Sheffield in UK.
Ah, yeah.
Yes.
There we go. The truly international dimension. We've got, what is it? Florida, California, Lagos in Nigeria, probably London in the UK. We've got someone who I suspect is dialing in from Cambridge. So welcome back, Annie. And then we've got Taiwo from Doncaster, the centre of the universe.
No, actually, sorry to interrupt, Gary, but we used to play a game at Christmas when I lived in Australia, which is where I come from. And because the school that our children went to was already very, what we used to say, multicultural, despite the recent events in Bondi, Australia has generally been quite a successful country in terms of blending cultures and allowing people from different cultures to migrate and then become first, second, third generation. So we used to play a game at Christmas. We used to invite what we called orphans, kids or young people who were away from their family. Mm-hmm. And then we played the "Where are you from?" game, going back 2 generations. So how many nationalities were you, your parents, and your grandparents? And we got to 64 one day, which was pretty good.
Wow.
So I reckon right now, if you did the same game, you would probably easily get to 20, I'm guessing.
I would not be surprised. It shows the true international diversity of blockchain, crypto, and technology in general as well. So that's thanks for showing that, Nathan. It's an interesting idea. Maybe next Sunday evening I might have a game of that if people come along and they have a few drinks and we can work out. So anyway, Alexander, coming back to you again, what's the latest in Nigeria? Is there anything interesting happening in the crypto space or blockchain space?
Not really. But then in the financial space, there is interesting talk. The new tax laws will be coming into effect next year, And it's really it's a topic of like really big discussions, and I'm pretty sure even the idea of blockchain we'll still be having these discussions in times to come. Yeah.
Okay. Because it was interesting that Nigeria was fairly far ahead at one point with things like introducing a CBDC with the eNaira. I might be pronouncing that wrongly, but that kind of like fell away. And Nigeria is quite innovative in some of its technology adoption. But I guess it's one of those classic things that there's innovative thinking and there's innovative execution. I think there's some really good innovative thinking going on, but I'm not seeing actually much coming through yet, which is the execution. So we'll see. So, okay, well, always interested to hear what's going on around the world and that kind of thing. And talking of which, Annie's rejoined us from the true centre of the universe, which is of course Cambridge in England, where everything is invented. So how's it going, Annie?
Well, I have to say it's quite interesting because I have met quite a few company who are doing what Nathan is doing in terms of trying to sell wine using exactly the same way. Actually, it's quite interesting. Every time I have that conversation, I was like, "Oh, I know somebody who is doing that already." I was like, there's another interesting thing was there was one time there is somebody who was being accused of doing something wrong with this particular thing that they are doing. I think it was wine. I don't know why it has gone wrong, and I was thinking to myself, right, how does that impact the others who are trying to do it in the right way, not necessarily like what is happening here with this person being taken as a criminal. So yes, it is quite interesting thing. I mean, I have been extremely active in a lot of things because I have already done the actual testing myself, and also I've been leading the external team who are doing testing on the web app and the and also on the mobile phone app. So I've been extremely busy. Let's just put it this way, very intense in my schedule with a lot of things. And yes,
That's good, and it's fascinating again how there are these overlaps in like blockchain and crypto and the technology type stuff. So it's really interesting. Yeah. And what wine has been one that I found fascinating because I come at it from two angles. One, having worked for a wine company, I've got an interest in that. And then secondly, looking at companies who've tried to put wine onto the blockchain per se. And Nathan, if I remember correctly, your approach was it's kind of like fractional ownership of en primeur wine. So it's still like in the vat. Is that right? Was that the approach you were
Yes,
taking?
and it's actually a bit. Yeah, it's just to clarify, Annie, one story that you might be referring to actually occurred in Australia about 15 years ago when a whiskey company fraudulently sold shares in whiskey that was supposedly in barrel maturing, but in fact didn't exist. And they got caught, but and that left, and that was actually pre blockchain. But the concept of en primeur, for people who don't know, meaning just simply it's effectively forward purchasing wine, and it's the very most common way that the high end Bordeaux is still traded today. So there are people called negociants who sit in between. They deal directly with the wineries. They buy up large, or they commit to buying large quantities, and then they on sell before the wine is bottled, but after it's made, and at the point at which the international tasters, the big names, Jancis Robinsons of the world, Robert Parkers and people, come in, taste the wine, rate it, and then the prices get established, and then it starts getting traded. So we're not doing that. We're taking something quite specific, which has already been in a barrel for a very long time, and is going to continue to stay in the barrel, hopefully getting better as it ages. That's where the blockchain and potentially crypto, I don't care about the crypto part, I care about the blockchain. That's where it comes in. It's a very efficient way, we believe, in allowing more people to participate in this process than the ones who currently buy the 100-year-old wine that we make for a ridiculously high price. It's very, very elitist at the moment. And one of the things I'm trying to do is to make it a little less so.
Yeah, I just think that even though I don't exactly have the link again of that news, it was after the Cebu Life meeting. So we're talking about quite recently, not
Okay.
not some old news, unfortunately. But I kind of quite worry when people doing things like this, it impact other people. And also, was it yesterday or even the day before, even more recently, as for example, people who get VCs sponsorship and apparently trying to use the money for something else rather than what they were supposed to use. And I just thought, oh my goodness, there are people like that. And that is going to be tough for people who are seriously wanting to do serious thing rather than actually misuse the money, right? So there is that as well as, you know, what I saw about the real thing, you know, with wine and stuff like that. There's just all sorts of things happening, right? And then there is also people who were being taken as criminal because they were doing something wrong with actual using the blockchain thing as whatever it was that they were using, the Bitcoin stuff and things like that. And they get, you know, and I was just thinking, oh my goodness, you know, it is the sort of thing that is impacting how going forward with things that are positive, that are actually happening for good, right?
But you get that in a lot of things. I mean, another example, staying with blockchain and wine and Australia, funnily enough, is a company called Everledger. And Everledger were probably one of the first in the provenance capability of using a blockchain-based platform, and that they were using if diamonds initially. And Liang Kemp, who was from Australia, was part of a team in the UK. They went through a startup competition, and they established this traceability capability looking at diamonds. And then they extended it to fine wine, and then they extended it to some other things. And then they had some, I'll have to be diplomatic here, internal board level challenges, shall we say, around things like funding and this kind of thing, which meant they went through a very difficult patch, and they had to consolidate, reshape, redo things. I think Leanne, who's the CEO, eventually managed to re-stabilize everything, but they went through a very difficult patch, and I think there were stories doing the rounds which won't have helped and everything. So you get these kind of things, as you say, Annie. That's not a blockchain or a crypto thing; it's a business thing. It's the nature of it. You'll get good people with good intent who try their best, and then you get other people who sometimes make a mess, and it all goes downhill from there. And it, as you say, it tarnishes others. So talking of others, change the subject. JT, I'm going to say hello to, and again, I'm going to give the opportunity that JT always leaves it to the last minute to introduce something really interesting.
Have you seen what's going on in China?
With what?
I saw an interesting documentary on Shenzhen, which is, I don't know whether you all know about the history of that. I'm sure Annie does. But I lived in Hong Kong in the 80s, and at that point, Shenzhen was a fishing village. You could walk to it from Hong Kong, and pretty much overnight it has become, you know, the tech powerhouse of China and the world, in fact, because they're testing the Chinese government. You know, you can say whatever you like about them, but if they decide to deploy something new, they don't need to spend a lot of time arguing about it. They do that behind closed doors, and then all the taxis in Shenzhen are now robots. Your food is delivered via a drone, and when you go to pay in the supermarket, you use your hand, your palm print. Pretty good. I like it. But you're giving away your entire identity at the same time.
But there are things like that going on. I was on a TV program a while ago where we were talking about using technology like fingerprints and this kind of thing as part of your identity for payments. And the people on the show were quite surprised when I said, do you realize that there's projects going on of using facial recognition for payment systems in biometrics? And there were several projects going on in the UK to explore using facial recognition to then use that as a form of authentication and validation and that to actually make payments. And people were saying, oh, come on, that's not happening in that. And then I discovered that they're actually running a couple of pilots in schools where they use biometric payments for like school meals and that. And I think that's very, very clever, because you're kind of indoctrinating, might be a harsh word to use, but certainly you're making children comfortable with the idea of biometric payments without them even realizing it, because they all think, oh, well, this is how I paid for my school lunch, so they don't think twice about it. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes as well. So JT, point taken. People might prefer cash, but businesses seem happy with digital now. So what else is happening? Anyone got any other news? Anything else happening? I see. What's this? Annie, you just shared an article.
Yes, I think somebody was sharing something. I tried to find the articles that I was sharing, but I think unfortunately that's not necessarily easy to find, because they always want to put in the more popular one at the time. Just put it that way. So yes. So that is the one that I can find. But what I mean is, yes, the one that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, I just never have the time to come, keep taking it. Someone is taking their hands up. Hello there.
Go on, Taiwo.
Yeah, this Taiwo. What about the crypto tax? Is it monitoring or reporting that is starting 2026 from UK?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if there's actually anything new come out about that. I know that there has been a requirement in the UK for several years now that HMRC, which for those who don't know, HM Revenue and Customs is the government department responsible for collection of taxes. They've mandated that you have to provide them with records of all your crypto transactions. And by all, they mean all. Not just above £5,000 or whatever, it's every crypto transaction, which is quite onerous because some people day trade and all this. But the obligation with HMRC has been to record all transactions and provide them. They've linked that in as well, that HMRC now has the right of access to bank accounts, I believe, which is quite strong. So it means that they can potentially, if they wanted to, take a look at your list of crypto transactions, take a look at your bank accounts, cross-match them and see if you're actually reporting everything. And then there's the third thing, that all crypto transaction providers, so like the Bitcoin, crypto exchanges, so things like Binance and Kraken and that, for the ones that operate in the UK, they also now have to provide HMRC with access to data on trading. Is that what you're talking about, Taiwo? Are they the areas?
Yes, exactly.
Well, yeah. That's normal, isn't it? I mean, you can't expect a government to just allow lots of money to be traded and not get their cut.
Ultimately. So I don't think there's actually anything completely new about that. I think it's all been in the offing for the last couple of years. And certainly the legislation that's been coming through has been putting that in. So yeah, ultimately it means that you have to declare everything, as is always the case. What's the theory? The only certainties in life are death and taxes. So that's the way it tends to work.
I just want to address the point that Annie was making before about maybe a little fear or concern about reputational damage by the bad actors. So the approach that we're taking is that not really any difference to the way traditional businesses develop their IP, or at least their brand value, which is based on trust. So if you go to buy a Chanel bag and you discover, well, unless it's a fake, but if it's now being authenticated, which they are doing, and you discover that it's badly made, well, you'll be pretty upset, and you'll probably take some action, and they won't allow that to happen because they've got a brand to look after. So in our little corner of the universe, we're working on very hard to be as transparent as possible to enable people to have the trust. So in the case of this wine, it's a nearly 200-year-old company that's worth a lot of money, and it has absolutely no desire at all to tarnish its reputation. So my discussions with them as a former partner in the company have been around that specifically, to say, well, in order for this to work, the wine's in the barrel, but we have to allow auditing. In fact, we have to encourage auditing by a third party. We have to encourage people who own the wine to come and taste it, check it, whenever they like. So it's going to be really easy for us to show that we're not hiding anything, which is the opposite of this thing that happened in Tasmania some years ago, and what I'm sure is still happening. Whatever story you've got, I'm sure people are still doing that. They're selling something that doesn't exist. Now, it's very easy to do in the case of wine that doesn't yet exist. You can just pretend it's there, or you can have some, and the quantity you're selling it's often done that way, that they produce an awful lot more than actually is produced. Fake labeling, things like that. That's very common, unfortunately.
I was going to throw in as well, because you mentioned Chanel, obviously a high quality luxury good. They've been tackling counterfeiting for a number of years by using NFC chips that are fitted in the handbags. But ultimately, I'm sure, given enough thought, there are ways around that. But I think they try and do it that the NFC chip links up with a master database or whatever. So, blockchain could be an ideal one with that.
No, well, there's actually a company called Aurora, a blockchain business that's only dealing with luxury brands. So I have not actually gone down the rabbit hole of talking to them yet, and I don't particularly feel I need to. But they are quite a few of the luxury brands, including some that I know personally, which I will check, are using them as a blockchain, providing, sort of going the next stage beyond the NFC chip. Yeah.
Just out of interest. Yes, Nathan, just out of interest, then the question for you. So have you managed to go through sort of, that there must be, even in Australia, right? There might be things that you have to pass through, right? Like in the UK, for example, financial side, it will go past through FCA and things like that. So is there such a organization that you have to pass through?
Well, only if we're becoming. Australia's published quite substantial information you can go to on the ATO, the Australian Tax Office's website, where they've clearly laid out the government's position on crypto and blockchain assets. And essentially, it boils down to whether you're dealing with a financial instrument or not. We say we're not. We are selling collectibles, and they are not there's no particularly onerous requirement. It would become so if we were selling shares that could be treated like normal shares. We're not. We're selling tokens, yes, but they are absolutely a collectible. You're buying a bit of wine. So you have to follow all the legal requirements for a winery, but that's already done. This is just another, as far as the government's concerned, as long as we declare, or as long as Seppeltsfield declares the income that they make from this process, there's nothing new that we have to do, as far as I'm aware. Not yet. Maybe someday there will be, but right now, the whole area of whether something's a financial instrument or not is still a little bit grey. We've had legal advice, and that is, provided you are clearly demonstrating that you're not trying to encourage trading as in shares, and that you're in fact encouraging people to hold for a long time, which we are, sometimes in fact mandating it. So if someone buys a 5-year-old wine in barrel, we will not deliver it until it's 10 years old because we don't think it's drinkable. So we'll actually put in rules like that ourselves. Well, you can't claim that to be a financial instrument. It's not. Yeah. So I think this is an evolving area. We'll be watching it carefully, but our legal advice so far is that we're not doing anything wrong or anything that requires, more work. And the Australian government seems to be taking a fairly practical approach, which is, as long as if this leads to a bigger international business and more tax being paid in Australia, bring it on. They're quite happy with that, and that's of course the goal. We're going to be launching this actual product. Ironically, is probably going to be launched in Mexico during the World Cup because we've got a partner over there who's very keen on what we're doing, and he's already got a business, but it's a tequila business. I know it sounds really weird, and we can talk about it another time, but that's in fact how international it's become, that we will sell tokens in wine which is sitting in a barrel in Australia and has been for 100 years to some dude in Mexico. I hope.
So there we go. It's definitely an alcohol-infused activity. It's interesting. So, and again, as Nathan rightly points out, legislation in different countries varies. So the US has been very much into what they describe as the Howey test as a way of determining if something's a security or not. But different countries have got different approaches. So it all depends. And for anyone who's watching or listening as well, I've heard this many times now where people say, "Oh well, the legislation in the country that we're incorporating in says this," and what they don't realise is that legislation typically applies to the jurisdiction of where the investor is, or where the speculator is, or where the purchaser is, not where the company's incorporated. So you get lots where I've seen companies who've incorporated their crypto operations in Panama. I said, "Oh well, we're incorporated in Panama, so an awful lot of the crypto regulation doesn't apply to us." It's like, well, yes, it does, because you're selling this instrument to people in the US or in the UK and this kind of thing, and they just don't get it initially. The US tends to have quite strong, long arms, and tend to come out and visit people if it thinks that you're breaching something that affects their securities or one of their many other rules and regulations. So anyway, so with that, 15 minutes left. Best say hello to Elena, who joined us as well. Hi, Elena. Hi. Listening in curiously there as always.
There's something else, Annie, about wine. I'm throwing in something a little bit different now, but this is a reality. There's a huge international crisis brewing, and it is that what they call Gen Z, or whatever the Z or whatever it is not drinking. And this is, I have many people in the business who believe we are now dealing not with a cyclical problem, but with a fundamental change in people's habits, and that young people today can get their kicks from psychoactive substances very readily available, and they often think that they're healthier, and in many cases they probably are, and they don't necessarily lead to addiction, which alcohol can do. And so they're taking the approach that, well, I didn't really like the taste of wine anyway, so why the bloody hell should I be drinking it, It's an acquired taste, like classical music. So I think there's a major problem. Australian vintage is about to start in a couple of months, and the Barossa Valley, which is one of the great wine regions of the world, is facing a crisis that the Growers Association is already reaching out to the government right now, asking for help, because they know there's going to be an enormous amount of unsold fruit, meaning potential wine that is going to wither and drop.
So there's going to be another wine lake.
Oh yeah, but this one might never. This might stay, Gary. I'm afraid that my own concern is that the gap between rich and poor is going to get even more, because the luxury brands will be fine, because people who have a lot of money will still pay for perceived excellence, even if it's not always, as you and I know, not always quite commensurate with the price. But that is going to be exacerbated. And there are already, I'm seeing it, it's happening in Bordeaux, very, very big time in Bordeaux. It's going to happen in the US, California as well, and Chile and Argentina. Let's not even go there. But if it's happening to probably the most premium region in Australia, that's got a big reputation to protect, you've got a problem.
And the alcohol industry is quite interesting because typically it's recession proof. Because basically, when times are good, people upgrade what they drink. That they buy better quality stuff, as like Nathan alludes to. But then when times are bad and you go into a depression, they still drink alcohol. It's just that they drink cheaper stuff. So it's interesting if the overall consumption's going down. That is a fascinatingly different experience from in the past. So.
Yeah, I only just want to say, I think Nathan was talking about Chinese and then referring to me. Actually, I'm Malaysian rather than actually Chinese. But in any case, talking about wine, I'm actually quite exponentially knows a lot of it. I do know the Portugal one as well, by the way. So I have been to Portugal and also tasted that, and been to France and tasted that, and in Germany and in the UK and. So I've been everywhere and tasted that. Except I was in Australia before, but I've not tasted the wine there. But in any case,
you should try it. Nice. You can get it much cheaper now, or you will very soon. So wait until the price drops, and you can have some very, very good wine for £10 a bottle.
There you go. So we don't offer financial advice, but if you're into wine, you might want to just hold off for a little while. That's a really interesting one. Nathan, thanks as always sharing those.
Thanks a lot. Sorry, Elena, for.
I know. Yeah, I have a small question to Nathan. So, how does the wine industry look to solve this problem of people not drinking?
Well, it's a good question. I don't have the answer other than don't get involved in the wine business if you're not already in it, because you're going to lose your money, almost certainly, unless you've got a very, very special product. And the thing that we're putting on blockchain is, and so it's completely safe in this regard because it's a unique product. But and I'm not trying to sell anything right now, by the way. But if you're making normally high quality wine, let's say wine that you would pay in the UK £20 and up for a bottle, you've got a real crisis on your hands, and I don't think there's going to be any quick solution. Someone said the other day, I'm not sure whether it was JT actually on one of the forums, that Africans are going to start drinking wine and everything will be okay. I don't actually believe that's going to happen. I think this is a generational issue, that the younger generation now is making a fundamental decision that alcohol may not be the best way to have a good time. So the fine wine, the very, very high end is probably going to be okay, at least whilst the world is getting richer, or at least some people are getting richer, they've got to spend their money on something, and wine's typically one of the ways in which you show off. Even if you don't particularly care for it, you buy expensive bottles of wine because it looks good. So I think those wines will be okay. But the next level down, I mean, I'm here in the US at the moment, and my daughter shops quite often at Costco, which is a huge corporation that you have to be a member of to buy. And it has often proprietary products which are very good value. Now, they do wine, and I came back from a trip to France a couple of weeks ago, and my daughter had these 4-packs in nice wooden cases of what I would consider to be, in Europe, €20 bottles of wine. So there's a retail value of €80, let's say. It was $28. And that's happening right now. So you can get unquestionably a bargain. $7 a bottle. It was ridiculous. That's barely covering their cost of production and marketing, all the rest of it. So they're losing money. Costco's paying them $3 or something. So.
I was going to say there are always ways of innovating in that. So you can either rethink the model, and think, well, actually, should we start selling bottles of wine in different sizes? So we could start selling smaller bottles of wine, which makes the cost lower, which makes it more affordable. That's one way of doing it. And people don't always think, well, actually, those 3 little bottles of 250 milliliters of wine is the equivalent of one 750 bottle, but it's more than 3 times the cost of the bottle. But, you'll do that. Or you might repackage it. So having worked for a company that used to sell 3 liters of wine in a carton as opposed to a glass bottle, and we were like world leader in what was called jug wine, then that's another way of doing it. Or you can reposition it aspirationally, as Nathan said. Wine is one of those industries where it's very much about aspiration and image and identity, more than the taste or the true provenance and that kind of thing. That kind of comes into it. So there are ways around this. The other thing is you can diversify. So it's like in California, you may have companies who initially start off selling wine, and then they diversify into also doing brandy, because use some of the same barrels at times, if I remember correctly, or other alcohol products, or you might acquire similar companies and that kind of thing. The one thing you can't do in the US still, I think, but you can in other countries, is you can't acquire along the supply chain, which is what you do in other industries. You might acquire your distributor or your retail operation or whatever. So you end up having right the way through from manufacturer, distribution to point of sale, all owned by a single company. You can't. I think they've still got 3-tier distribution in place in the US where you can't legally do that.
Yep.
And that was introduced originally, if I remember correctly, to overcome the challenges of prohibition in the 1920s, was it, in the US, where you had the gangs who control the distribution of alcohol, which was illegal at the time anyway. But it meant the mobsters control the distribution, the supply and everything. And that's why in the US you've got 3-tier distribution to prevent that now. So there are always business models you can come up with. There are new ways of things. But we're getting a bit far away from the crypto world with this conversation, I think.
Well, I mean, Elena, one of the ways in which I think some people will actually use a blockchain to forward sell their wine, and that will be at least a way of making what you think you can sell rather than what happens at the moment. You make what the land produces. There'll also be an adjustment period, probably 10 years, whereby it's already happening in France. The government is paying people to pull vines out. You're getting paid a subsidy to take the vines out and use the land for any other purpose than wine. Australia did it once before, and they'll probably start doing it again. And eventually you'll get back to some sort of balance, but probably at a lower overall number. That's my guess.
Yeah. And we've seen that done before in the UK and Europe, where the world, it was known as wine lakes and butter mountains at one point, where it was an oversupply of product and an under demand. So look, we've got 5 minutes left. So I want to move away from alcohol now, even though it is the festive period. Just to throw in, if anyone's got any news, anything they've seen in the crypto world the last few days, anything interesting going on?
I sent you a link before, Gary.
You sent me a link?
Yeah, WhatsApp.
Oh, I wish people wouldn't send WhatsApp links when I'm on a call. That means I'm going to have to go and find it now. Can't you just put it in the chat?
Come on, JT, put it on the chat because I would like to have it too.
Oh, hang on. I'll pump fund class action lawsuit. Go on. I'll dig it out and I'll pop it up on the screen in a moment. Let's have a look.
Yeah, while you're doing that, does anybody from Nigeria has anything else to add on top of the new tax law or something? You managed to find it.
Yeah, there we go. So go on, JT, talk us through this. It's
So this was some guys that put with a law firm, I think, a class action suit about, I think it was Pump Fun and Solana and so on, that they were basically scamming all users of Pump.fun. That's what they are saying, allegedly, okay? And that there was a scheme where Solana Foundation was involved with Pump Fun founders. There's like 5,000 chats that these guys wanted to log with a judge, in court, because there was a whistleblower. It looks like they basically were front running everyone. So every time someone was creating a coin on Pump Fun, they had access at the validator level to actually then buy first. Always they would be the first ones to buy that meme coin that was launched there. So they were front running everyone, and then of course they would dump the coin. And that's what I understand from that. And this is in court at the moment. If this is proven, if those chats that they have are really compromising, oh my God, I don't even want to think about what's going to happen to Solana and Solana price and all of that. So, but again, all of that is allegedly. We don't know,
So that's certainly going to be an interesting one for those who don't know. Like front running, as it's known as a traditional financial activity, or rather illegal activity, whereby you take in orders and you effectively forward buy against the order and then actually sell it to the real customer. So you make a margin on it. And in traditional like stock exchanges now, front running can be illegal. In fact, I think it generally is. And what some companies do is they operate what are called dark pools, which is where they've got access to some shares now, and effectively they take in an order from somebody, they forward buy it through their dark pool, and then they sell it with a margin in that. So very dodgy. So interesting to see that. I always say crypto is fascinating because it always ends up replicating everything that happens in the financial markets. So if Pump Fun are found guilty of that,
I don't know if it's the crypto people replicating or if it's the bad actors from traditional markets coming to crypto. Big hedge funds, blah, blah, blah. We know they're very used to do those type of things. So we will see at some point,
Yeah. That's definitely one to watch out for then. So maybe that's a good one to finish with then. So that if we think about the impact that could have on crypto and how bad news that could be, that could turn you to alcohol, which could solve the problem. So there we go. So that maybe works out okay. So the solution of how to sell more wine is encouraging criminality in crypto, which is definitely not a thing. So, right, folks, it looks like we're about on the hour anyway. JT, thank you for sharing that one. It was really interesting. Nathan, thanks as always. Annie,
just keep an eye on it. That's all I'm saying,
Exactly. That's a good one. So, wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yes.
Thanks for joining. Go have a drink. Yeah. And see you all later on this year on the 28th. Of December, we will be back. We don't break for Christmas around here. So have a great day, everybody.
Yes, Cheers. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone.